Welcome back, builders. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here for another explainer from the Foundry by Forge College. Today, we're diving into From Historical Shifts to Decentralized Applications. Now, if you caught our previous lesson, you know we unpacked the core principles of decentralization, ownership, and incentives. We talked about how token models turn participation into measurable economic signals. But today, we're putting on our hard hats. We're going to take those theoretical concepts and apply them practically. Our goal is to look at the internet's evolution not just as a history lesson, but as a literal blueprint for engineering the decentralized applications of tomorrow.
Okay, let's dive straight into this blueprint. First up, the internet's blueprint, then the architecture stack, building a Web3 app, weighing the trade-offs, and finally, engineering the future. Let's get to it. Section 1, the internet's blueprint, connecting Web 1 to Web 3. Now, you might be wondering, why do we even need decentralization? Well, it's incredibly important to understand that it is definitely not just some abstract, utopian ideology. Actually, it's a very specific technical response to massive coordination and trust problems that have just piled up over the past couple of decades. Let's walk through the eras. Back in Web 1, the internet was totally protocol dominant. It was all about open sites built on shared rules. Anyone could jump in without asking permission. Then we hit Web 2, the era of the giant platform. And sure, it brought us incredibly slick, user-friendly apps, but those platforms quickly realized they could just hoard our data to heavily monetize our attention, basically treating us as the product. That exact walled garden centralization is what created the absolute necessity for Web 3. Web 3 reintroduces decentralization and uses cryptographic token incentives to fix the trust and coordination bottlenecks that Web 2 created.
Moving right along to Section 2, the architecture stack, protocol, platform, and application. To really engineer these solutions, we need a foundational blueprint, a mental model to understand exactly how the internet is constructed layer by layer. At the very bottom, you've got the protocol layer. These are your low-level rules and data formats, historically things like HTTP or DNS. Sitting right in the middle is the platform layer, which aggregates those protocols into highly valuable services. Think search engines or massive social media giants. And up at the very top is the application layer, the actual user-facing experience. Now here is the real secret to Web3. It aims to rip some of that centralized power away from the middle platform layer and push it right back down to the protocol layer using open, interoperable primitives. By the way, you can totally dive deeper into the mechanics of these technical layers in some of our other fantastic programs at Forge College, but for our purposes today, just remember this stack, because where you choose to build totally dictates the amount of control you have. Section 3, building a Web3 app, a social app case study.
Okay, let's get practical. Imagine you and I are sitting down right now to design a decentralized social application. Our core engineering goals: we want to meaningfully reward content creators, and we want to give users actual cryptographic control over their own data. And this brilliantly illustrates our first major fork in the road: data ownership. The classic Web 2 choice is to just dump everything into a central database, hosted and controlled by the platform. But our decentralized option relies on content-addressed storage and user-controlled cryptographic keys. We are literally replacing platform data hoarding with true ownership. It separates your identity credentials from the app itself, meaning you hold the keys, not some massive tech giant.
Next up in our app build is how we actually handle incentives and rewards. In Web 2, if you get paid, it goes through their internal platform accounting, right? It's fast, sure, but it's a completely closed book. You just have to blindly trust their spreadsheet. The decentralized alternative? On-chain minting or hybrid roots of trust. That means the open source code and the community verify the transactions, not a private middleman. You get undeniable transparency and verifiable settlement. Now, the architectural give and take here is that on-chain settlement is inherently slower and requires a bit more effort than simply updating a private database, but you're trading that raw speed for trustless verification. Then we hit the really tricky one: moderation. Anyone who has ever been on the internet knows scaling content review is an absolute headache. Web 2 tackles this with top-down centralized moderation teams. Web 3, on the other hand, leans heavily into community governance and reputation systems. But let's be totally objective for a second. This isn't some perfect utopia either. You're basically weighing the risks of a token-weighted plutocracy, where the richest users just buy the loudest megaphones, against a centralized company unilaterally banning things they don't like. Which brings us to Section 4, weighing the trade-offs, the spec sheet. Listen, It is absolutely vital to treat decentralization strictly as an engineering trade-off. It is not a magic wand that just effortlessly fixes everything. So the crucial point here is understanding concepts like composability. Composability happens when protocols expose stable, open interfaces. It allows anyone to build and innovate on top of them without having to ask for permission. You aren't relying on an API that some platform might just arbitrarily revoke tomorrow. Web3 lets developers snap together these interconnected ecosystems like giant Lego bricks, completely free from the fear of a gatekeeper shutting them down.
So I want you to just pause on this question for a second. Are you willing to trade raw platform latency for verifiable trust and permissionless composability? It's a genuine question you have to ask yourself when designing these systems, because every single architectural choice in a blueprint has a tangible cost. You want ultimate trust? Well, you might just have to sacrifice a few milliseconds of loading speed to get it. When we map out these decisions, the dimensions become super clear. Take governance speed. Centralized systems give you fast, immediate corporate updates. Boom, done. Decentralized systems, they require on-chain proposals and community voting, much more deliberate, but vastly more transparent. What about availability? You're trading tightly controlled server infrastructure for distributed nodes with variable replication. And innovation shifts entirely from closed-door R&D roadmaps into open, permissionless composability.
And we absolutely cannot talk about trade-offs without bringing up user experience. I mean, we've all felt that collective groan of forgetting a Web2 password and having to click reset, right? Well, in Web3, if you lose your cryptographic keys, there is no customer service hotline to call to get them back. That means we need totally new UX primitives for account recovery if this is ever going to reach mainstream adoption. Things like social recovery models, multi-signature guardians, or maybe even hybrid custodial options. We have to design these systems for real everyday humans.
All right, Section 5. Engineering the Future, Practical Principles.
Let's synthesize everything we've talked about today and bring it right back to practical application. If you're an engineer or a builder evaluating a decentralized app, you've got to keep 3 practical principles front and center. 1, identify the structural layer you're dealing with. Are you fixing a protocol or a platform? 2, treat every single decision as an engineering trade-off. There are no perfect solutions, only optimized balances. And 3, map your incentive mechanisms to measurable outcomes. If you want a specific behavior from your network, you have to literally encode the incentive for it.
Let's move to our defining takeaway for today and see how this all builds together. Decentralization is a set of engineering trade-offs requiring concrete mitigation strategies, not ideological slogans. This is the objective, blueprint-style mentality you have to carry forward. We are engineering actual systems here, not writing manifestos. So I want to leave you with this provocative question to chew on. How will these foundational engineering trade-offs shape the interactive user-driven web of tomorrow? It is such an exciting puzzle to solve, and the choices we make right now will dictate the architecture of the internet for decades to come. I highly encourage you to head over to forge.college to continue your learning journey, explore more incredible Web3 topics, and really dive into the nuts and bolts of these emerging technologies. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.